Everyone for coming back. We had a break and we got fresh coffee. This great panel here, I've known all of these gentlemen for some time. We're gonna have Seth Blank from Valimail here moderate today. And on the panel at the far end, we have Alex Brotman from Comcast, Ebenezer, I'm gonna get your last name. Anjorin from Google, and Tobias Herkula. Yeah, from 101. I got really bad when it comes to German accent. Terrible German accent for getting names proper. So if there's questions, I'm gonna run around with the mic. So think about some questions that you'd like to come up with. But I think Seth is going to get us started, and we'll go that way.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone. We wanted to have a conversation with all of you today. So I'm going to kick off with some questions for the panel, but Matthew's got a mic, and this is really about all of your questions versus us hearing ourselves talk. So please raise your hands, interrupt us, engage. That's why we're here. And so just to start to get a feel for the room, I'm assuming if you can put your hands up that you've heard of the new email delivery requirements from Google and Yahoo. No? How many of you know that one-on-one has similar requirements? Smaller hand. How many of you know that Comcast is hopefully coming soon?
We have similar requirements.
So I have my hand up that I get something wrong. So we have normally been telling the story as an ecosystem about the security side of the requirements, why this matters. And what I want to ask the panelists is the flip side. It's the impact to messages that all of you are sending to consumers in their inboxes. And I think I want to start with Eddie from Google. What is the reason what's the why behind this from a actually sending mail to users that users want?
Thank you. That's such a good question. And I think it's actually a question that is most relevant to the work I do at Gmail. And to just give folks context, the team in Gmail is mostly focused on anti-abuse, which is really stopping the bad messages from getting to people's inbox. My role is actually slightly different because I sit in between sort of senders with tools like GPT, as well as experiences in the Gmail app itself. So I actually take a more sort of recipient lens, if you will. Now, so the reason why I get that question super relevant is, at the end of the day, for us in Gmail, everything we do is focused on the user, right? And we obsess about making sure that, obviously Gmail, but I think that email as a whole continues to be relevant because, over the years, that's just not the only channel that people have to receive messages. There are other channels that are actually becoming more prevalent for either consumer to consumer interaction, but also business to consumer, communications. So the question really for us, we want to make sure that when users open the Gmail app, they actually find value. And the way they find value is by, being able to actually engage and interact with the messages that they want. And the number one feedback that we get consistently from users is, I get too many messages that I don't want. And, so much so that people go to the extreme of doing things like sometimes they just declare, a bankruptcy, so they open a new address because, they try to triage and I just give up, I'm just going to open a brand new mail. So in Gmail, we know, for example, that sometimes people have multiple addresses because they've opened a few ones and they've been clogged with, messages that they don't want. So, so the reason why we're pushing for, not just the notification requirement, but also the, unsubscribe is we want to make sure that users have control to filter out the messages that they don't want. And that then allows them to engage with the messages that they do actually want. So ultimately, ideally, this is a win-win for the businesses who are sending messages that people want, but also for the recipients who are able to read those messages, because those messages are not suppressed by the other unwanted messages that is plugging their inbox, not something that we care so much about.
So I think that raises a really interesting point, which is there's been this deluge of spam and phish since COVID started. And are the new requirements actually helping to separate the bad from the good so that wanted messages are able to get through more effectively? I think that's the intent from the policy side. And I'll start with Tobias, you represent probably half of the German market and a nice international segment. Are you seeing any impact from these requirements yet?
So yes, here, I'll just put that one. So yes, as the Yahoo thing was on one side, or the so-named Yahoo incident last year. Yeah, it is an incident. Was opening for us because we really thought about enforcing these kind of requirements for years already. Like we know each other. Like DKIM is around for at least 10 years now. SPF even longer. We have domain keys even before that, and all these requirements were around for years. And we really struggled we are a much smaller organization in that sense. We really struggled to find the right way to communicate that and to enforce that to users. And we were really happy when Google and Yahoo announced this requirements, and we were essentially switching the lever in our office and said, yeah, that's the same for us now. The people here who are wondering who I am, I'm the mail security and mail transfer postmaster, and all these kind of email at 1&1, and 1&1 is not a well-known brand, I think, in the North American market, but we are well-known under mail.com, GMX, Web.de, and the hosting platform Ionos and FastHosts. And for all these brands, I'm responsible more or less for the inbound email management and handling. And we really like the Yahoo thing and the Google thing. That really helped us. We implement that. You will see a very descriptive response message from our systems if you're not aligned beacon sign. We would love if we would even go that far that we would not want to accept any mails that are not aligned beacon signed anymore. But I think that will take another couple of years, but not decades, years. And yeah, and then I can only go with Ebi's intentions here. What we want is that our customers get the mail they want, and they don't see this craft that is coming around. And we want them to give them tools to handle that. And ideally, we want to even get a step further. We had nice talks in the last couple of days, but the ideas are always that we can even go in there and handling all this content management for them as well, so that our users have direct control and can tell brands that they don't want this kind of email flow anymore, or that they're interested in different kind of setup for email flows. Like some people really like to get an email every morning and check that when they're drinking their coffee on the balcony. Some people are fed up if they get one email per week. And if we as a mailbox provider have the issue to, we only get the signals that people don't like the message by deleting, spam reporting, or the unsubscribe click. That's the only real information we get from our end users about what do they think about a specific sender or brand. And to combining all that, we would love to go into the direction to have more control or provide our users more control about profile changes. And essentially what Matt said in the intro today, like profile pages or preference pages are awesome. And if we can get that integrated directly with our users, that would be the holy grail. I think we're trying to follow right now.
And Alex, same question here.
That took forever. What was the question?
Have you seen impact from these changes on your system and users ability to receive the mail they actually want through the deluge of spam and phish?
Sure. I mean, so I think that when you have large-scale receivers, Google and Yahoo, stand up and make these requirements, it's sort of a win for everybody in the ecosystem. I think that's a good thing. I mean, like, you start being able to separate the good from the bad, and it makes it. And while these requirements seem onerous to the senders, it really helps us be able to separate good from bad. And at the end of the day, the bad is the bigger problem. Like the good is like it has its own issues, but it's the bad that we're trying to keep out. So by identifying yourself as a good sender, it allows us to better spot spam, fish, and those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I think that's actually a really interesting point I want to ask the panel about. There's been some data that shared that about 80% of all mail comes with some authentication signal, but by from domain, by individual sender, it's closer to 15 to 20%. And a lot of that's not locked down to the point where you still can't be impersonated. With these new requirements requiring authentication for all senders, making sure senders can identify themselves, it leads into what Matt was talking about this morning about trust and restoring trust. So my question is, what are you thinking about as mailboxes once you actually have verified identity for all the senders coming to you? What's next? What can be done? What can marketers do to build upon that into the inbox of the future where there is a trusted underpinning versus a malicious underpinning? And Evie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that we in Gmail are sort of thinking about. One is, when we get to a world where the user's inbox is filled with the messages that they want, that allows us to do a lot of amazing things. And if you've been checking the Gmail app lately, you've been seeing some of those features overlapped. And one of the ways we want to make the inbox more useful for users is by doing features that elevate messages from senders that we trust. So, for example, recently we just launched a card feature. There was a blog post about that elevates some content from the user's inbox and allows them to take certain actions. Those kind of features will only trigger if we trust you as a sender. And obviously, if you don't authenticate your message, then we won't trigger those kind of features on your on your message. So that's an example of the kind of benefit that senders get, but also users get, because now that we know that the messages that are in the inbox are what people actually want and they are properly authenticated, we can then even further elevate them through certain features that makes them more actionable. I think the other aspect that I'm also really pushing on for GPT is, historically, a lot of the signals that we've provided are just the negative signals, right? Like the spam report. One of the sort of paradigm shifts that, it's something that we've thought about a lot in Gmail, but I think we can even do it now when we sort of know senders and put senders are properly identified, is we can start to share more signals with senders that are well behaved, if you will. So, very soon, hopefully in our Postmaster tools, we want to start providing data to senders who we think are doing the right things, and we want to help them get better. And today, yes, we provide some signals, which is a spam report, and that's good. But obviously, we have more data that we can share. But obviously, we don't want to help the bad guys, we want to help the good guys. So, those are some additional things that will benefit the consumers in terms of what they see in Gmail, because now, we can get rid of the junk and have the great stuff in the inbox, but also for senders, if you meet our guidelines, you can actually expect to get some additional data in our Postmaster tools, which if you don't meet those guidelines, you won't be able to do that. I think another even very basic one is today you can escalate, if you run into spam issues in Gmail. Going forward, you will need to meet some requirements to be able to do that, because again, if you're not authenticating your email, you should go fix that first before you can, before you escalate, right? Because you just should go do that first. So I think those are the sort of next things that are going to come from everyone adopting this guidance. I think it just sets a new floor that we can then add a bunch of good stuff on top of it.
Yeah. And so I'll ask the same question to the rest of the panel, but Eddie, what I think I heard you say is you've got to set new bedrock for the ecosystem, but it's not setting bedrock for bedrock. It's you actually want to build richer, more engaging features for users, let brands deliver better, more relevant information and get better data out of it from moving to that new bedrock. Is that?
That is absolutely Correct. Again, going back to what I said earlier, at the end of the day, we want to make email and Gmail to be relevant for our users. I mean, that's what this comes down to at the end of the day. And the way we do that is by adding value to both senders and to the recipients or the users of our app. So yes, you're definitely right. I think getting to this new baseline allows us to do even more greater things that benefits everyone in the ecosystem.
Thank you. So same question, Tobias. What is one-on-one mail.com thinking about on this new bedrock? What's coming for your users as there's more authentic mail?
So yeah, we have a couple of things already in experimentation phase. So we're talking about mail.com. These features are currently hidden behind the feature switch, so no only internal employees can access them. But for our GMX international brand, it's already opt-inable by end users. What you can get, it's called our smart inbox feature. And what we do is if you authenticate right, so if you're talking authentication right, we're talking DMIC paths within a line deacon signature. We're not talking about SPF. If you think about SPF is enough, then please search for a new ESP. There are a couple in the room that I'm pretty sure that are totally able to provide you that. If your current one can't do that. SPF is not a solution in any way for getting a DMIC path that will help you to get any additional features besides spam box delivery. So what we have is a smart inbox feature. We try to identify the different brands you communicate with, like say your bank or a travel agency or anything like that. And then you get curated content pages for that specific vendor, where you get like a linear view of what kind of information you got. And if there are offers in there, they're getting extracted based on schema.org and some internal proprietary stuff. And then you get like this represented inside of the mail user agents of your end users that can directly see, oh, here's an offer that expires in the next 2 weeks. So I see it prominently in the mail user agent. And this is curated for your brand. You can even go that far, but then most likely money is involved in the future. You can even go that far that you can get personalization of these brand pages inside of the mail user agent. When you have, you are a bank and you can have different streams like, hey, here, this is your bank, and here are all the emails with your bank statements. And by the way, here's are the emails that say there's a contract change, there's a TOS change or anything. So be aware. Same goes with mobile providers that send you contract updates, or our mail user agent will try to remind you that your contract is about to expire in the next 2 months. So you could look for a new one, or you could already say, hey, if I extend this contract now, I perhaps get any incentives from that mobile provider. So these are the things that are already available to a limited amount of our end users. And so one big thing that is required for that are the Yahoo requirements, essentially. And our goal is, or if we are reaching that bedrock, that everything is authenticated in at least that way, or perhaps even better, we will see what the next 2 years will bring. We are able to extend this kind of offering to a lot more brands and to all of our end users. And it would make it much easier for us to decide if something is good or bad. We are following the idea that we want to identify the good ones in the mail streams, and everyone who's not behaving like a good one is considered a bad one and will have a very hard time to even reach the mailboxes. And we are not even talking about the inbox.
So as you know, we talk about good, better, best with senders, when we talk about the authentication, and we can better divide those streams. I think that we can start hopefully to provide more information back to the senders to help you understand when your campaigns and so on, your streams are working the way you want them, or how to make them work better for your consumers. It's Matt alluded to a little bit during the opening. There's a lot of people out there who really are tired of the constant just deluge of mail that's coming in, and there's not a lot of. So if you know more information about what percentage is opening or not, or whatever the case may be, it can help you say, look, we maybe are just sending too much. I have things that I get in my personal email box where I get it once per day. I'm like, I can deal with that. There's somebody right now who I think is emailing me 3 to 4 times a day. And that is absolutely insane. I mean,
You won't reply to me.
but the crazy thing is they're selling me a product that they definitely shouldn't be selling. They're trying to sell me a product. First, I've only been to their site once, and it is absolutely crazy that I get 4 messages a day from them. So I mean, those are the kind of things where if you understand that customers don't want to see those things, and it doesn't matter. And I realize it could perform differently at Google or one-on-one or at Comcast, but that lets you help you have a better understanding of are we doing the right thing? Are we connecting? You may have, and I think someone's talking later about open click data, and that sort of thing. But you have some of that to rely on. But if that's not reliable in the best sense, then this kind of information could help you.
So
I have a question.
None of them are on.
this,
We can hear you.
and I have one more question for the panel after this, and then I'd love people start picking up and we'll run Q&A. But
Yeah, I'll just say that. So there was some conversation around sort of enhanced features in the inbox, right? So a while ago, tabs, some people love them, some people don't. I love tabs, by the way. So thank you for tabs. Keeps my inbox usable. But like you mentioned schema, and now like we're seeing things like AMP for email, and they enhanced advertisements in email and different platforms are bubbling up parts of the message, like Tobias was saying. Where do you see that type of thing going in the future, right? AMP adoption in certain regions of the world is significantly higher than, say, North America. Do you see challenges? Like, what can we do? Because obviously, right, it's the user experience. You're going to give the user a better inbox experience. You basically put a small application in their inbox to make them engage with your brand, right? Where do we, as an industry, from your point of view, need to go to get that experience? Like, what can we do to make sure that that experience carries forward, right? Microsoft tried AMP and said, nah, nobody did it, right? You guys have been championing AMP. Yahoo's been championing AMP. How do we continue to make sure that this audience understands what AMP is and how to design for it? What are we missing, I guess? And what would you like us to do?
And I'm going to add one thing to that question and hand the mic is Yahoo in the same study where they showed the 10% lift through Bimmy, they actually connected AMP and schema and Bimmy and data feedback loops and saw a 5x return on engagements. So which is just astronomical. And yet marketers aren't using it because things are in the way. And so Matt, I think what your question is like, what's in the way? What can senders do to take advantage of these things that create tremendous lift in engagement for their users and therefore ROI for their activities?
Okay, so I mean that's a fantastic question. I actually think it's not just senders. I think even we can do better, or we are planning to do better. Because I think on the sender side, I fundamentally think and you touched on this actually in the keynote. I think we've been doing email the same way forever. And the reality is, consumer behavior shifts, technology shifts, and you can't keep doing things the same way and then expect different results. So just to give some concrete example, and this might be new, but in Gmail we see totally different behavior with different demographics. So if you're brand, you set into Gen Z. So if you're brand and you're selling to Gen Z, you have to think of your content just very different because we see that they just interact differently, than millennials. So I think, and also with the advent of AI, GenAI, yes, it's not a panacea, it's not going to solve your problem as you've said, but I think by thinking about your content, thinking about leverage technologies like schema.org, or even just how you structure your email, because obviously we rely on schema.org and Gmail to provide, but we're also doing a lot of AI extraction to summarize your messages. So even simple best practices like sending your email as an image entirely as a pretty bad idea, because that's just much difficult for us to extract the text and do like engaging things with it. Yes, I think there's a lot that can be done in terms of again, senders really paying attention to consumer shifts, looking at how people engage with messages on other channels. So think of what all of the innovation with SMS and with things like a WhatsApp, which is especially for the younger generations, or even things like iMessage, and figuring out how you can take some of the things that work on those platforms and incorporate that into your messages. So I think and as we're saying too, I mean, like all these tools are out there, and I think for the most part, senders are even do like the basic things that we'll talk about, like having one click unsubscribe, respecting, recipient wish. You don't want to get your email anymore, then you just stop, sending it, doing simple things like a double consent, make sure you actually like get additional consent for some emails. Like just like basic things that I think they've been known in the industry forever, or like a lot of senders still do them. Yes, I think those are examples of what senders can be better. And I think on our side, we also want to get to the point where we provide better insights for senders to be able to know what's actually happening at a deeper level with the messages that we send. With the hope that they can then course correct and take actions. Again, at the end of the day, kind of going back to what I started with. We want to help good senders send better messages. I mean, that's something I want to make sure everyone takes away. Our focus is not about rejecting messages. I know people ask that a lot. That's not actually what we think about. Our focus is how can we help the good senders send better messages so that our users can find value in what engineering.
And I'll ask the same question to Tobias. Alex, anything you'd like to add on things for AMP schema adoption and to help better engagement, drive better engagement?
We for sure we are looking at schema.org stuff as well. So but to enable it, you have to register with us on our postmaster pages. You have to reach out. There's a schema.org. Hey, I would like to do that, and I know that's not the best way to do that. So I would love in Germany if we could automate this kind of stuff, but currently we do schema.org, but we have to register via our postmaster pages and to reach out to one of our product management guys that are sitting on the front end that will help you figure out what you need to do to achieve what. But we do that already. And it's not on our roadmap. We don't like the concept, how it currently looks like. I know it's there are discussions about that for ages already, but we, from a product perspective, currently don't like that. And if I can give one hint here right now that how you should segment to reach better engagement with our users, we see a tremendous difference between how Gen X and Boomers interact with email and how millennials or Gen Y or Gen Z or even Gen Alpha already interact with email. So try to differentiate your campaigns for these specific target age groups, because a boomer loves to scroll and he sees a newsletter more like that. That's a catalog where I can see and click and then I have that. And a lot of Gen Zs, they never use a scroll at all. So if you're not above the fold for what you want to sell, you will not sell it at all, because single item marketing and higher volumes are more interesting, or higher frequencies are for Gen Z are much more interesting, it seems like, than for Gen X and Boomers who prefer like the classic weekly thing where they can go in a catalog and choose their own time on when to buy something and what to buy.
I mean, yeah, I echo a lot of what Tobias said. I personally kind of feel like the schema stuff has more utility, but I guess that's really subjective. AMP is nice, but I don't know, like for me, like I click on something and then it can take you right to the same website, or it just takes you to a generic landing page with the same carousel. So maybe that's an implementation thing that for the sites that I use. But I do understand that for some people it is a fantastic way to shop, and I've seen people who are completely in love with it. So I don't want to discount it, but for me, like I think the schema stuff is more useful, just in my perspective.
And actually, I have one question for the panel, and then we'll go to you, because I think just to tie this together, we're talking about AMP, and we're talking about schema, and we're talking about the requirements, but the thread through all of these is a requirement for alignment, right? AMP requires aligned deacon, schema requires it, BIMI requires demarc enforcement. The current requirements, Eddie, that you published, it's all alignment. It says alignment, alignment, alignment. So it's not hard to imagine a world where everything else in that message, images, URLs, also have to align. How do you think about that? Where is this going? Are there other things people should be thinking about in the guise of the intent of these requirements?
Yeah, I think very quickly, I mean, what I would say is I think the spirit of the requirements is clear. So, when you read our box on the requirements, even the things that are not there yet, I think it's pretty clear where we want to go. And I think the smart money will be on trying to get ahead of it, right? Because again, it's very evident where we want to go, which is we want to make things as safe, as trustworthy as possible. So obviously, that's not a one-time requirement. That's going to evolve over time as we observe, how the ecosystem shifts. So yeah, I think it's very difficult to say, what's going to come tomorrow, what's going to come in 2 months or even a year from now. But I think hopefully it is very clear what we want to do. This is the journey. Our goals is the same. We're committed to ensuring that, our users want to think about, this is Brown that can send this message, can I trust the link that's in it? We don't be thinking about that. When we want them to Matthew's keynote to get an email, be 100% confident that the brand actually sent it, and they have the trust to click on it, and then engage with the message.
You made a hell of a face. Explain.
Yeah, for me, if you go to YouTube and search for my name, most likely you will find exactly one video on YouTube for me. And that is from a very similar conference that I did at least 5 or 6 years ago, where I'm telling the crowd that there's no such thing as reputation. That's only a term we use to transport a very, 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 very complex model on how to calculate things. And I tried to push into that with the term computational trust, and that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about these kind of requirements. To determine if a message should be delivered or not, we need to calculate what to do with that message and what kind of features that message has that we can trust as a receiver. And DKIM, it's a cryptographic signature on a message, and alignment helps, and all these kind together will compute the trust level or trust identifier or multiple of these kind of feature vectors for the mail we make our decisions on. So this is the requirement for the future, and we will have more strict things every week from now on. There will be more requirements. And I was laughing mainly because we have 2 years ago, we had a huge thing I think there's a domain online that's alignment.email that states exactly that. Why isn't alignment required for all the URLs in the body of an email? And that's the question we are asking each other in the community of mailbox providers constantly. And I'm pretty sure at some point we will reach that point where we can say, hey, we are there now. The technology is far enough that all the marketing agencies and all the ESPs are able to efficiently handle this kind of requirements. In the current days, if you go to your ESP, it sometimes says, yeah, but you have to use our CDN for image delivery. You can't mask that with your own domain, and that still happens. In today's world, I would say, yeah, ask them, push them about that feature. Perhaps next year I would sit here and say, yeah, you should abandon that ESP if you can't deliver that kind of features. And I think that's how it goes. What we want to have eagerly is that we see exactly one single domain in a whole email and nothing else. That doesn't mean that subdomains are not allowed and that all this kind of features doesn't work anymore. It only means that you as a sender or you as a ESP service provider that helps senders and brands need to provide this kind of feature set to your customers, because that is something we want to do. We want to pinpoint specific trust relationships with our users to brands. And for that, we need to make sure that we only allow these brands if they are authenticated to our end users' inbox.
So it's interesting today because I think there are people who say everything must be aligned today, and I don't think that's true today. I don't know anybody who's doing that today, but I do think through the magic of DNS and HTTP redirects, it is far beyond possible for an ESP to do this today. It is probably one of the easiest things that you could do. Oh, did I just get in trouble?
I'm saying yes.
Oh, okay.
I like my customer.
So yeah, I mean, it really is truly a simple thing to do. Again, it's not required today, but it's if you talk to your average IT guy, he'll tell you like, oh yeah, I can make all that align for you. Like it's not hard. You just have to kind of sit down and make it work with all the templating and everything like that. And somebody has to go through in the compliance department and say, this is what we're going to check for from now on. We're going to help them get everything set up the way that it should be so that it works for our customer and works for the end recipient.
Yeah. And the end result is it builds trust for the mailbox in the sender, and then the sender gets to deliver more relevant information. We've got questions around the room. Please keep them coming.
Well, you're all talking about sending information. You're forgetting 25% of the population who has 65% of the money, who are getting tired of what we call email. I run businesses. I will not allow my people to answer anybody that sends me a Gmail. So if you got a Google Gmail account, forget it. You're never going to be able to tap into our system. I won't touch. I won't touch utility bills anymore. If any of you run a utility or send a bill or anything like that, you've got to worry about the people who are 75 years of age. They're beginning to turn you off. And it's going to be a very growing faction. You well remember what happened in the telephone business. RIM went after what? They went after the businessman. I happen to be on the other side. I was with Steve. We built a consumer product, but we built a damn good consumer product. We didn't, and it's still to this day a hard product to use, but it's got a lot of safety built into it. But I guess we're getting tired of the bullshit that I get 500-600 emails a day and I just turn them off, delete. You can't do it anymore. So you're going to have to come up with some way to start dealing with business, to start dealing with the consumer. And if you don't, you're going to all sit around like advertising agencies of what, 20 years ago. And that whole industry disappeared. And you're going to disappear again too. And somebody else is going to come along and, I understand Google, was there when it got started. And it's great. And you're only interested in one thing, making money. Making money. And that's fine. But you've got to have some thinking of the consumer at the same time. That's going to be hard to do.
I think there's a really interesting point in here too that Google may want to talk about from their requirements is the sheer number of people who take their Gmail address and do things. And I think Google's learning from controls to help manage that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, so a lot of people spoke Gmail today. So that's when you send an email from address from Gmail that Gmail didn't actually send. That's actually a violation of our policy, or we actually started to enforce on that. And that's also part of our requirements. So people shouldn't do that. We're making it difficult and very soon actually impossible for that to happen. But I mean, I do agree with the comments, I suppose. And and that goes back to what I said earlier is email is amazing because it's free, it's open, everyone can use it. But I think that that also presents some challenges. Mm-hmm. And the solutions were pretty simple, I'm sure we would have done it, but I think we are making a lot of effort to make sure that email stays relevant for everybody. And which is why again I emphasize that this is a journey. We need to get everyone to play their part to kind of get to a baseline, and then we can then build on top of that. So I couldn't agree more with you, and it's not just 7-5.
But your lawyers, come on, your lawyers are going to go after the politicians. It's no different than the telecom industry. When I was growing up in the 70s, the chairman of the Bell said, "Don't, Bob, you don't need a sales force. You're going to have lawyers. They're going to go to Ottawa, get the CRTC to set the rules." We're still in that game in Canada. We're still in that game in America. We're not in that game in Europe. The Europeans are beginning to not listen to the lawyers from Google and Apple and Amazon and Microsoft. They're being brought to bear. We're not ready to do that in North America because we're still free, white, and 21 in this country. And we've got more lawyers, I know, in Cisco and Google, you got more lawyers in Washington than you can, I bet you got more than salesmen.
So I will say, and I think that I understand what you're saying. I think that Google and Yahoo and Microsoft, and I think one-on-one, I feel like they're doing more to help customers avoid the mail they don't want, and then also help protect, make sure the right domains are sending in, but also allowing people to unsubscribe from an email more easily. So like if you mark a message as spam and maybe it can be unsubscribed, they might do that, behind the scenes. I'm not speaking for anybody, but like that may happen behind the scenes to help you get less mail. I think that there's a lot of, and we talked about this earlier, inbox fatigue is a real thing. People hate it. And if you give your email address to one wrong entity, it gets bought, sold, and traded across, and your idea of privacy is absolutely shattered. I realize I'm in the wrong country right now, but like if you give an email address to one of the political parties, like you'll start getting it from a politician on the other side of the country because they're like, hey, like, we can do this. And so if you don't always read the privacy when you give somebody your email address, and I realize that there's a lot of those to read, but your email address can easily be, like, oh, well, we saw you bought something from, I'm not trying to get him in trouble. You bought something from Gap. Oh, well, Gap also owns Banana Republic. Now Banana Republic is going to use that email list because they see you might be a potential customer. Some of that needs to change. Like that's, there should be a little bit more strict control about that, but that's not necessarily Google's fault or Microsoft's fault or anybody's fault. It's just, there's not enough privacy laws, I don't think, to help protect the users in all the right ways. So.
Yeah, I think the other point that this panel started with is the role of the inboxes, as you put it yourself, is to deliver messages to inbox recipients that they want. And what you're talking about is the mail you don't want. And we're setting new infrastructure to make it a lot easier and better. LB, and we run Mike.
He's got the mic.
Oh, please.
Yeah, it occurs to me that email with all of this blocking and managing, does it affect the reliability of email as a communication tool? So I send you an email and you never get it, and I'm wondering why the hell you never responded to me. When I pick up the phone, I can leave you a voicemail, right?
It's not full.
That's not.
If you have check your voicemail.
No, I'm asking. Yeah.
If you don't get any response, then I most likely didn't like your email, because if you are able to send me an email, and then I will get it, and if I don't get it, you will get a bounce back that says your mail server was not able to deliver your email to me.
Got it.
And at least on the European market, that's by telecommunication law. I'm, as mailbox provider, and not allowed to route mails to a trash can without the user or the sender knowing. In America, I think that's a little bit different. I think nobody from Microsoft is here, so I can say it, but I don't want to put them into the bad side. Everyone who's in the email marketing business for a couple of weeks knows that Microsoft has the notorious thing that they sometimes simply lose mails.
Discard messages.
Yeah, root messages to dev zero or something like that, and in the technical terms. So that's a known thing. But in Germany, or especially in Europe, we are not allowed to do that by law. So if you're able to send me an email and I don't answer and you don't get anything back, then I simply didn't like you. But if you get an error message back from your mail server that said I was not able to deliver that message because of X, you can ask your email service provider or your mailbox provider why this happens. Sometimes it's because you are sharing your email hosting with a lot of spammers, and that's why WebDE does not accept your email. But you would get told that by an error message.
Got it. Thank you.
Two questions, because I know we got to finish on time. So we're here first, and then
Two-part question, if you don't mind. So, Tobias, first one to you. So, in talking about unwanted mail, in Germany, we have not federal law about double opt-in, but maybe policy directed from mailbox providers about double opt-in. Not to get into that topic so deeply, but maybe you could comment a little bit on the extent to which that helps to protect the end users, and that mailbox providers don't necessarily need to follow federal law, but they're doing what's in the best interest of the consent for the consumer, the end recipient. The other part, kind of going back to the alignment topic, how much of this is, let's say, adopted? We had a lot of senders who were good senders who didn't need to change much. You had a lot of bad senders, either the platform didn't support it, or, so how many of these bad senders are adopting these better practices? Because there's a lot of platforms that still don't enable it. I posted about Trustpilot the other day, saying, hey, we don't support DK, which is crazy in this time and age. So maybe it's totally different questions, but yeah, I don't mind commenting on both.
So yeah, for the double opt-in, let's go back to the official term that's confirmed opt-in. I think double opt-in is a term that spammers use to discredit the confirmed opt-in, to simply say there's double the work to be done by the recipient. So it's confirmed opt-in that is required by law in Germany. Because it's the only viable way to prove consent of receiving marketing material. So I know that's not written like that, but that the laws are never written on technical specifications. The law requires that you need to be able to prove that you have consent to send marketing. And confirmed opt-in mails are the only way to do that in a reliable manner. But sure, you could have like an electronic passport validation process, sure. If your marketing department likes that more, then confirmed opt-in, do it. And on the other side, sure, we see bad actors that are adapting very fast on all these requirements that we have with DKIM alignment, SPF alignment. But that's a good thing too, because even if the bad actors doing that, it's much easier to identify them and reroute the computational trust that we have for them and directly blocking them. So there's no real benefit for a bad actor to go that route, because we are at least 10 years behind the fact that only doing the right thing helps you already to reach the inbox. It's not like you do DKIM and you reach inbox. It's like you do DKIM so that we as mailbox provider perhaps consider delivering your message. Because if you don't do it, then you're not even considered to reach the inbox. And that's a change we have.
We got one question and 1 minute.
So I'm curious, as far as a retrospective, how complicated was filtering when you're having to figure out, okay, this email, because I've seen Google in the past inbox mail that was failing every authentication parameter, like SPF, DKIM, and DBARC. And I'm kind of wondering, how did that work? How would you figure out, okay, no, I still think this is a mail that should go into the inbox?
Less than 1 minute.
I mean, well, just say, it's a very, I think we can touch on that quite earlier. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a very complex system, and there are lots and lots and lots of signals that ultimately get considered to determine whether a message goes to the inbox or a message goes to spam. So it's not really one thing, in which, again, I think doing this thing doesn't necessarily guarantee delivery, but it helps us, have stronger signals that increases the possibility that email gets delivered. Maybe that's the simplest way.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, why would the mail systems ever accept unauthenticated mail? Or mail that is failing all the brands.
Well, apparently.
But there are too many users that are still on very old hardware that simply can't do that. It's like, I know that for these meetings here, we are talking a lot about B2C traffic, but mainly users that are on our platforms are doing C2C communication. That if they interact with their mailbox, they normally want to send a message to someone they know. And all of these levels are way more complicated and get aligned than the B2C and B2B traffic.
So is the point, if you're a brand, if you're a platform, do the right thing, or there will be real impact. Yeah. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone.